I have trouble getting to sleep, so I stick my finger in my butt and count to 50. I was like, what the fuck? It was only like 96 pages, and so I finished it all in a day. This is going to be like an analysis of it, kind of, and I'm just going to take you through each chapter, and I'm going to tell you the parts that like were really messed up, because this book was like I just need to talk to the author. I just want to know what goes on in his mind. We begin with the main character. His name is Bart. His actual name is like Bartholomew, but he's like, I don't like that name and it's not sexy, so I go by Bart. Bart is a fry cook. He has a dad bod, but like he said, not the attractive kind. He has like a big belly. He can't see his little friend because of how big it is. He's just kind of described as being very gross and disgusting. So right off the bat, I'm like, ew. He starts off by saying how he wants to find his lifelong partner. That's why the book is called 100% Match. He's trying to find his perfect match. But it's hard for him because he's unattractive. No one desires to date a fry cook. He's not swaggy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one wants to be with Bart. After describing his traits of why he's not attractive and why no one wants to be with him, he says, I'm working on upgrading my desirability though. Statistically speaking, elementary educators enjoy the most success in long-term relationships. That incident at the state park in Arkansas is causing some minor delays in me being accepted into the teaching program, however. So we learned that there was an incident and he can't be a school teacher, which right off the bat, you're like, are you a pedo? Like, what? And the first chapter just keeps going on about what he likes in a woman and what women like in men, and he's trying to craft himself perfectly to find his perfect match. And then he goes to work, but on his way to work his little fry cook duties, this part, we start to learn about Bart very quickly. He says, I'm about halfway to work when I see Miss Danbury walking from her house to check the mail. It's too early for the mail to have arrived. She should know since she's lived in the neighborhood for over half a century. But when you're 80, I suppose an extra walk or two to the mailbox is good for the old body. I tell Miss Danbury hello and give her a wave and move on. She's a widow, but I have no intention of making a move on her. I have masturbated to Miss Danbury 3 times though. Once while I was at work. So he's on his way to work. He walks, by the way. His mother died and left him the car, but there was another incident where he lost his license. So he can't legally drive, so he walks to work. That's important, kind of, to remember. On his way to work, he finds a grasshopper. He steps on it, puts it in a Ziploc bag. So that was just the morning and him walking to work. Say hi to Binks. We are introduced to a new character. His name is Jim. He's the restaurant owner of where Bart works at. When learning about the owner, Jim, Bart says that he once ate a burger that Bart made and he was hospitalized for weeks and somehow he made it out alive. So you're starting to think, Bart, do you kill people for fun? Or are you just a fucking freak? We learn that while at work, he does please himself with a jar of mayonnaise, and someone ordered a burger with mayonnaise and he grabs it and he goes, I wonder if this is one that I've used. It's hard to tell, so that's questionable. Okay, and so after the work day of him making burgers and stuff like that, he walks home, and at this point I literally screamed, what the fuck am I reading? Like, I was laughing because it just came out of nowhere. And this is all in the first chapter, and I'm just like, what the fuck are we doing? So he goes home, and he watches TV and stuff, and then it says, after the show, I take a poop in a Ziploc and put it in the fridge next to a used jar of mayonnaise, and Mimi, the next door neighbor's dead chihuahua, she'll need to be used soon, before she spoils. Before heading to bed, I shoot the kid I have chained up in the basement. 76% of women can be convinced that the sound of a gunshot was actually a car backfiring. And then the chapter just ends, and I'm like, how the fuck did we get here? You have a fucking dead dog in your fridge, and you have a child locked in your basement? What the fuck? I was like, what the fuck am I reading? Bart, what are we doing? Chapter 2 was not that long. All he goes to say is that blondes are most likely to cheat in a relationship. Throughout this book, Bart just says statistics, and I don't think that they're right. They're just kind of misogynistic. He went on a date with a blonde once. Her name was Barbara. The date was going really the date was going really well, and then she was like, "Tell me something that no one knows about you." He thinks it's okay to tell her. I told her about the time I visited a random person at the nursing home, taking with me a bag containing a bearded dragon, a cucumber, and a mallet. Deborah was not impressed by my escapades at the nursing home. The night ended poorly. 2 days later, Deborah would die after spraying herself with hydrofluoric acid that had somehow made its way into her perfume bottle. The author is like saying little incidents, but he's not going into detail about what he's done. So I'm like, okay, are we gonna find out what he's done later on? Now we're on chapter 3. He goes back to work. We learn that he cut up the chihuahua that was in his fridge and took it to work and is making patties out of it and serving it to people. So that's peculiar. And then after work, he goes to the store. He looks at women and he thinks about pleasing himself while thinking about them later on, even though one is an old lady who can barely walk and then another one's an Asian. And then he goes on to say something weird about Asians. I didn't highlight it, but it was like really weird and unnecessary. And I thought this part was going to go somewhere, but it literally, like, there was no need for this if you're not going to tell us what happened. Basically, Bart runs into his old middle school principal and he asks how he's doing, blah, blah, blah. Bart tells him how he's trying to become a teacher. And the principal's like, oh, that's great. And it says, after an awkward moment, we bid each other goodbye and say it was nice seeing each other, and such as that. He fails to mention what he caught me doing in the janitor's closet when I was in the 8th grade, and I'm glad for this. And like, I want to know what Bart is doing, but the author is not including that. And you never find out. I guess it's to like make it seem like he's really fucking weird, but I feel like the fact that he had a dead chihuahua in his fridge would, you know, that would do it. But I guess we need these past incidents that you're not going to go into detail about. And then this is a important moment for the plot that's kind of non-existent. Bart goes out into the parking lot when he leaves the grocery store and he sees a woman walking into the store and she drops her wallet and he picks it up and he's like, ma'am, you dropped this. And she's like the most gorgeous thing he's ever seen. He can like barely talk to her and he's like, I know, she's my 100% match. And she's like, thank you for the wallet. And he like doesn't say anything. Whenever she leaves and thanks him again, he's like, I don't know why I always fuck this up. I can't talk to women normally. So he goes home thinking about the girl. Her name is Sarah. This part really made me want to cry because basically he finds a cat in his yard and usually it's noted that he will kick the cat into the like road in front of his house if he finds a stray cat in his yard. But this time he picks it up, he takes it inside, he kicks it in the face, which made me want to cry. But then he shares food with the cat and he says that the cat seems to like it. It also says before bed he cuts up the dead kid in his basement. Chapter 4 was kind of boring. It just talks about a girl named Wendy he went on a date with. He met her online, and then when they meet up in person, he says that he got catfish because she looks a lot older than what she was online. At the date, she tells him that she has kids, and she didn't want to tell him in the first place because she thought it would scare him off, and then he leaves the date, and then it says, unfortunately, Wendy died that night, along with all of her children and 3 other residents when her apartment building burned down. So he killed the Wendy girl. That was all in that chapter. Chapter 5, he goes to work. He's making some chili because it's chili day at the burger joint. He gets out a Ziploc bag of his own feces and he does dump it into the chili pot and serves everyone that works there chili and the customers the poop chili, and they all say it's amazing. And then he even goes to say, I tried it myself and it was delicious. And I'm just at the point of like, what the fuck is wrong with you? For real? My notes after that literally said, the fuck? And then this is the part where I thought Bart was like hallucinating or something. The girl that dropped her wallet goes into the burger joint and asks for Bart. And Bart comes up and she's like, I finally found you. I just want to say thank you for finding my wallet. Like, do you want to go on a date? which I thought was weird because Bart never exchanged his name, I believe, whenever he helped the girl with the wallet. So I was like, okay, this has to be his imagination. I mean, he's psychotic, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that he was imagining this girl being into him. So he agrees to go on a date with her the next day. And this part, literally, I was like, what the fuck is, like, I just wanted to know, like, did this author take this book seriously or what? Because at the end of the chapter, he goes home, thinks about the date that he's going to go on with Sarah, and then he says, before going to bed, I send an email to my senator telling him that he'll be assassinated in 13 days. I have trouble getting to sleep, so I stick my finger in my butt and count to 50. I was like, what the fuck am I reading? What the fuck are we doing? Like, I literally sat and laughed at that for like 10 minutes yesterday after I read it. I was like, what are we doing? So chapter 6, all you need to know, he goes on a date with Sarah. It goes perfect. They have so much in common. He's like, I don't know how this attractive woman would be into me. And Sarah invites him over to her place the following day. So now we get to chapter 7. This is after the perfect date with Sarah. You know, he's driving his car that he's not legally allowed to drive because his license is revoked or whatever. And the cop pulls him over and he's like, oh, what the flip? And he's like freaking out. And the cop's like, can I have your registration and your license? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, do you really have to run that? And she's like, yeah, sorry, it's protocol. He got pulled over for his like brake light being out, and he ends up just killing the cop, like smashing her head with a crowbar that was in his trunk, and then he puts her in the trunk, and then he drives off and he realizes that she's still alive because she's shooting through the trunk with her gun, and then he takes his gun and turns around and starts shooting the trunk and kills her that way. He also did some things to her body I'm not going to repeat because I don't know if that's appropriate on YouTube. But you can imagine what would a man do with a dead body? Just imagine. What do you think? Yeah, he did it. Didn't go into much detail, just said that he did it. That's like the problem with this book. I feel like the idea of it is disgusting, but the author is not going into detail. He's saying and not describing. Does that make sense? The next day, he goes to Sarah's house for their second date. She's like, do you want a glass of tea? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so he drinks it and he gets drugged. Sarah drugged him. What the flip? What are we doing? What the flip? And so he gets drugged. He passes out. Then chapter 9, he wakes up naked on a bed. Sarah is in this like dominatrix like black suit, like American Horror Story, like, you know, that suit. She's like dressed up in that. She has like a whip in her hand and he's naked on a bed and a camera's in front of him, and she's like apparently she is like an OnlyFans person or something because she was like, my online viewers wanted this, and she starts doing stuff to him that he didn't want, and he's like realizing this whole time that she's as fucked up as him and that is his 100% match. But then he starts to say that she cuts off his toes for her viewers and like starts to play with his insides, and then he dies. So Sarah killed him. It's kind of deserved, but he also found his perfect match, but now he's dead. So this book was only 96 pages, and I don't know if it was supposed to be like funny, because I did laugh a lot just because of how stupid and crazy it was. I didn't hate it. It was like kind of like I kept reading because I was like intrigued of like what we are gonna find out about Bart, but you don't really know why he is the way that he is. You don't get any background information on him. The author just showed he wasn't very descriptive. Also, I wish you would have found out about Bart's incidents he kept bringing up. He brought up that he had an incident like almost 2 times a chapter, and I was just like, go into detail. You are an author. Like, do the detail. It was really gross and weird, but I feel like the author, like, he just made it his like goal to gross you out and not really write a story. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a hater. So thanks for watching. Smell you later.